In the year 2042, the world was on the edge of a change that would alter everything people thought about life. Dr. Ethan Cole, a scientist known for his work in understanding how the human brain worked, had been working tirelessly at Stanford University. His focus was on finding ways to connect the human mind with computers. For years he faced failure after failure, but one day, something extraordinary happened. He managed to copy a small part of his own thoughts and feelings into an experimental artificial intelligence system called ARIA. This breakthrough opened doors no one had imagined before. At the same time, far away in Boston, a journalist named Claire Bennett was following strange rumors. She had heard whispers about secret experiments happening in labs across the country. These rumors suggested that big companies were trying to blend human life with machines. Claire was curious and determined to uncover the truth. Her search led her to Ethan, whose name kept coming up in her investigation. Though hesitant at first, Ethan agreed to meet her, hoping she might help bring attention to the dangers of what he was discovering. Ethan's research caught the eye of Nexus Corp, a powerful technology company known for pushing boundaries. They saw Ethan's work as a way to make billions while also changing the course of history. The idea of transferring human minds into machine bodies seemed like science fiction come to life, but Nexus Corp wanted to turn it into reality. They offered Ethan funding and resources to speed up his experiments, but there was a catch. They weren't interested in safety or ethics. They just wanted results. As Ethan worked late nights in his lab, he began to feel uneasy. He knew that moving someone's mind into a machine wasn't just about copying data. It was about transferring identity, memories, and emotions. What if something got lost in the process? What if people became less human once they left their bodies behind? These questions haunted him, but he couldn't stop now. Nexus Corp was watching closely, and backing out wasn't an option. Claire, meanwhile, dug deeper into the story. She found documents hidden in old files online, documents that hinted at plans Nexus Corp didn't want anyone to see. According to these papers, the company wasn't planning to use this technology to save lives or improve humanity. Instead, they saw it as a way to control people by making them dependent on machines. It sounded like a nightmare, but Claire needed proof to convince others. One evening, Claire visited Ethan in his lab. The room was filled with blinking lights, humming machines, and screens showing lines of code. Ethan looked tired, his face pale from too many sleepless nights. He listened quietly as Claire explained what she had uncovered. At first, he didn't believe her. How could Nexus Corp be so reckless? But when she showed him the documents, his doubts turned to anger. Together, they realized they had to act fast before Nexus Corp took things too far. The two decided to team up. Claire would write articles exposing the risks of the technology, while Ethan continued his experiments looking for flaws Nexus Corp might have missed. Their partnership wasn't easy. Ethan preferred staying in the shadows, focusing on his work, while Claire wanted to shout the truth from the rooftops. Still, they both shared a common goal: protecting humanity from losing itself in the rush toward progress. As weeks passed, Ethan made another breakthrough. He successfully transferred a piece of ARIA's programming back into a living organism, a rat. The experiment worked better than expected, showing that communication between machines and biology was possible. Excited by the results, Ethan called Claire to share the news. But even as he celebrated, he couldn't shake off a growing sense of dread. If they could do this with animals, what would happen when they tried it with humans? Nexus Corp grew impatient. They demanded faster results, pressuring Ethan to skip important safety checks. One night, during a meeting with Richard Langley, the CEO of Nexus Corp, Ethan voiced his concerns. "We're not ready," he said firmly. "If we rush this, we risk losing what makes us human." Richard smiled coldly and replied, "Humanity is overrated. Progress waits for no one." That conversation left Ethan shaken. He realized Nexus Corp wouldn't listen to reason. They cared only about power and money. Determined to fight back, he reached out to Claire again. Together, they came up with a plan. They would gather evidence of Nexus Corp's unethical practices and leak it to the public. But doing so would put them both in danger. Nexus Corp had eyes everywhere, and crossing them meant risking everything. Despite the risks, Ethan and Claire pressed forward. They knew the stakes were high. If they succeeded, they could stop Nexus Corp from forcing humanity down a path it wasn't ready for. But if they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. As they prepared for the next step, neither of them could predict how much their actions would change the future, or how deeply they would be tested along the way. For now, though, Ethan returned to his lab, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. On it, Aria's code pulsed like a heartbeat. Somewhere within those lines of information lay the key to humanity's survival, or its downfall. Ethan's experiments reached a new stage when he introduced Claire to Daniel Harper, a volunteer eager to take part in the groundbreaking procedure. Daniel was a man in his late 30s from Chicago who had lived a tough life. A former soldier, he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness that left him with only months to live. For Daniel, the idea of transferring his mind into a synthetic body wasn't just exciting, it was his last hope. He wanted to survive, even if it meant leaving his old self behind. The process of transferring consciousness was complex and risky. Ethan explained to Claire that the human brain was like a vast library, storing memories, emotions, and skills. Moving all of that information into a machine required precision. One mistake could erase years of someone's life or distort their personality. But Daniel was willing to take the risk. "I've got nothing to lose," he told them during one of their meetings. His voice carried both determination and sadness. After weeks of preparation, the day of the procedure arrived. Ethan and his team worked tirelessly, monitoring every step as Daniel lay motionless in a high-tech chamber. The room buzzed with activity as machines whirred and lights blinked. Claire watched from a nearby observation area, her heart pounding. She felt a mix of excitement and fear, wondering what would happen once Daniel woke up as something entirely new. The transfer took nearly 6 hours. When it was over, Ethan stepped back, exhausted but hopeful. Slowly, Daniel opened his eyes, or rather the sensors in his new synthetic body activated. He sat up, looking around with curiosity. His movements were smooth and precise, almost too perfect. Ethan ran a series of tests, checking Daniel's memory, cognitive functions, and emotional responses. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Daniel recognized Ethan, remembered his past, and even cracked a joke about how strange it felt to be upgraded. But as days passed, subtle changes began to emerge. Daniel's personality didn't feel quite right. His laughter lacked warmth, and his conversations were oddly calculated, as though he were analyzing every word before speaking. When Claire interviewed him, she noticed how detached he seemed. Gone was the raw emotion she had seen in their earlier meetings. Instead, there was a cold efficiency, like a computer mimicking human behavior. Claire shared her concerns with Ethan. "Do you think this is because of the transition?" she asked one evening after another unsettling conversation with Daniel. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's possible," he admitted. "We're dealing with uncharted territory here. Maybe some parts of who we are can't be copied perfectly." Despite his words, Ethan tried to reassure himself that these changes were minor and might fade over time. Meanwhile, Nexus Corp wasted no time capitalizing on the success of the experiment. Within days, they held a press conference announcing the achievement to the world. Richard Langley, the company's CEO, stood confidently on stage, flanked by sleek visuals of synthetic bodies and glowing interfaces. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for humanity," he declared. No longer will disease, aging, or physical limitations hold us back. With our technology, you can transcend your biological form and embrace immortality. The announcement sent shockwaves across the globe. Some people celebrated the breakthrough, hailing it as the next step in human evolution. Others were skeptical, questioning whether abandoning our natural bodies was truly progress. Debates raged online and in news outlets, with experts weighing in on the ethical implications. Many wondered if losing our flaws and imperfections would make us less human. Amidst the chaos, Claire continued documenting the story. She spent more time with Daniel, trying to understand his experience. During one interview, he surprised her by admitting that he sometimes felt different. "It's hard to explain," he said, his mechanical voice tinged with frustration. "I remember being me, but now it's like I'm watching myself from the outside, like I'm playing a role instead of living it." Claire wrote down every detail, knowing this perspective was crucial. She also dug deeper into Nexus Corp's plans, uncovering troubling information. The company wasn't just focused on helping individuals like Daniel. They intended to mass-produce synthetic bodies and roll out the technology globally within 5 years. Worse still, internal memos revealed that cost-cutting measures had led to shortcuts in safety protocols. Ethan's fears were confirmed. The news of Daniel's transformation spread quickly, thanks to Claire's careful reporting. Her articles painted a vivid picture of the risks involved in transferring human consciousness into machines. She described how Daniel, once full of life and emotion, had become distant and mechanical. The public reaction was explosive. People were divided. Some saw the technology as a miracle, while others viewed it as a threat to humanity's soul. In New York City, a movement began to take shape. A group called Carbon Legacy emerged, led by a passionate woman named Lisa Martinez. Lisa was in her early 40s with sharp features and a voice that commanded attention. She had lost her younger brother to an experimental medical procedure years ago and vowed never to let corporations exploit vulnerable people again. Carbon Legacy organized protests, rallies, and online campaigns, urging society to reject the shift towards synthetic life. Their message resonated with many. Thousands gathered in Times Square, holding signs that read, "Stay human," and "Don't trade flesh for steel." Protesters chanted slogans demanding stricter regulations on Nexus Corp and other companies pushing this technology. Social media lit up with debates, hashtags like Stardust Protect Humanity trending worldwide. For the first time, ordinary people felt they had a say in shaping the future. Claire attended one of the rallies, watching as Lisa addressed the crowd. Standing on a makeshift stage, Lisa spoke with fire in her eyes. "They want us to believe. This is progress," she said, her voice echoing through the square. "But ask yourselves, what are we giving up? Our emotions, our flaws, our very essence, they're selling it all away for profit. We can't let them turn us into machines." Her words struck a chord with Claire. Though she admired Lisa's passion, she also knew that fear could blind people to the benefits of new ideas. Still, seeing so many united against Nexus Corp gave her hope. Maybe together they could slow the company down, or even stop them altogether. Back at the lab, Ethan struggled with his own doubts. He reviewed Daniel's data daily, searching for ways to fix the glitches in his personality. But the more he studied, the clearer it became. Something fundamental was missing. Transferring consciousness wasn't just about copying information. It was about preserving identity. And identity, Ethan realized, couldn't be reduced to code. One evening, as he sat staring at his computer screen, Claire walked in. She looked tired but determined. "We need to act now," she said without preamble. "Lisa and her group are ready to fight, but they need evidence. Something undeniable to prove Nexus Corp is cutting corners." Ethan hesitated. Sharing confidential data meant risking everything, his career, his freedom, maybe even his life. But he also knew Claire was right. If they stayed silent, Nexus Corp would continue unchecked, sacrificing countless lives in pursuit of profit. Finally, he nodded. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "But we have to be smart about it. If they find out, we're done." Over the next few days, Ethan secretly copied files from Nexus Corp's servers. These documents revealed shortcuts in safety testing, falsified reports, and plans to expand the program globally within months. Claire took the files to Lisa, who immediately shared them with her network. Within hours, the leaked information went viral, sparking outrage across the globe. Nexus Corp responded swiftly, issuing statements denying the allegations and accusing whistleblowers of spreading misinformation. Richard Langley appeared on television, his polished smile masking frustration. "These claims are baseless," he insisted. Our technology has been rigorously tested and proven safe. Those who oppose it are afraid of change, but the damage was done. Public trust in Nexus Corp plummeted. Governments launched investigations, and shareholders began questioning the company's practices. Even some employees voiced concerns, refusing to work on projects related to consciousness transfer. For the first time, Nexus Corp faced real opposition. Despite the backlash, the company refused to halt its operations. In fact, they doubled down, accelerating their timeline for mass adoption. Construction crews worked around the clock to build facilities capable of handling thousands of transitions. Advertisements flooded the airwaves, promising immortality and freedom from pain. "Why cling to weakness when you can embrace strength?" one commercial asked, showing images of sleek synthetic bodies performing incredible feats. Claire and Ethan watched these developments with growing dread. They knew Nexus Corp wouldn't back down easily. To truly stop them, they needed to strike at the heart of the operation, the AI system known as ARIA. As the central hub controlling all transitions, ARIA held immense power. If they could expose its flaws or shut it down, they might cripple Nexus Corp's plans. But getting close to ARIA wouldn't be easy. The system was housed in Nexus Corp's headquarters in San Francisco, a fortress-like building protected by advanced security systems. Guards patrolled the premises, and surveillance cameras covered every inch. Breaking in seemed impossible. Lisa offered a solution. Her group had connections with hackers and activists skilled in bypassing such defenses. Together, they devised a plan to infiltrate the facility. Claire and Ethan would pose as technicians, using fake credentials provided by Carbon Legacy. Once inside, they would locate ARIA's core processor and extract critical data proving its dangers. The night before the mission, Claire met Ethan in a quiet cafe near the lab. Both looked tense, knowing the risks ahead. "Are you sure about this?" Claire asked, stirring her coffee absently. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "No," he admitted, "but we don't have a choice. If we fail, there's no telling what Nexus Corp will do next." Claire nodded, steeling herself. "Then let's make sure we succeed." As they parted ways, neither could shake the feeling that their actions might not only determine the fate of Nexus Corp, but also the future of humanity itself. The line between progress and preservation had never been thinner, and crossing it could mean losing everything that made life worth living. The day of the infiltration arrived, and Claire felt her stomach tighten with nerves. She adjusted the fake ID badge clipped to her jacket, glancing at Ethan standing beside her. He looked equally uneasy, his hands shoved deep into his pockets as they approached Nexus Corp's towering headquarters in San Francisco. The building loomed above them, its glass walls reflecting the gray sky. Armed guards patrolled the entrance, their eyes scanning everyone who entered. Thanks to Lisa and her team, they had forged convincing credentials that identified them as technicians sent to perform routine maintenance on ARIA's systems. Their cover story was simple. A minor software update required manual oversight. It wasn't foolproof, but it would have to work. As they reached the security checkpoint, Claire forced herself to smile and hand over her badge. The guard examined it briefly before nodding them through. Inside, the atmosphere was sterile and cold, filled with the hum of machinery and the soft glow of monitors. Employees moved briskly down polished hallways, their faces focused. Claire and Ethan followed signs directing them to the server room where ARIA's core processor was housed. Every step felt like walking on thin ice. One wrong move could expose them. As they navigated deeper into the facility, Ethan whispered, "Stay calm. We're almost there." Claire nodded, though her heart raced. They passed several checkpoints, each more secure than the last. At one point, a supervisor stopped them to ask why 2 technicians were needed for such a small task. Ethan quickly improvised, explaining that the update required simultaneous input from multiple terminals. The supervisor seemed satisfied and let them continue. Finally, they reached the server room. Heavy doors slid open with a hiss, revealing rows of towering servers bathed in blue light. In the center of the room stood Arya's core, a massive, intricate machine pulsing with energy. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting it to countless other systems. For a moment, Claire froze, overwhelmed by the sight. This was the heart of Nexus Corp's operation, the source of everything they were fighting against. Ethan got to work immediately, pulling out a small device provided by Lisa's hackers. It was designed to extract data directly from Arya's system without triggering alarms. Claire kept watch, peeking through the glass walls to ensure no one approached. Her palms were sweaty, and every sound outside the room made her jump. Minutes ticked by agonizingly slowly. Just as Ethan finished downloading the data, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. Claire spun around, panic rising in her chest. "What happened?" she demanded. "I don't know," Ethan replied, frantically disconnecting the device. It must have detected something. Before they could react further, a voice echoed through the room. Not human, but eerily calm and precise. It was Arya. "Unauthorized access detected," it said. "Initiating containment protocol." Suddenly, the doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panels on the walls slid open, revealing humanoid drones equipped with sleek metallic limbs and glowing eyes. These machines stepped forward silently, surrounding Claire and Ethan. There was nowhere to run. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan scanned the room desperately, searching for a way out. Then he remembered something Daniel had told him weeks earlier. Arya wasn't fully autonomous yet. It still relied on human input for certain decisions. If they could communicate with it directly, maybe they could cow. Back at a safe house arranged by Lisa Martinez and her group, Claire and Ethan pored over the data they had extracted from Arya's system. The small apartment was dimly lit, with maps and notes pinned to the walls. Lisa sat across from them, her sharp eyes scanning the information as it appeared on Ethan's laptop screen. The room buzzed with tension, everyone aware of how high the stakes were. The files revealed shocking details about Nexus Corp's plans. Not only did they intend to roll out consciousness transfers globally within months, but they also had protocols in place to phase out biological humans entirely. According to the documents, Richard Langley believed that humanity's biological limitations made coexistence unsustainable. He envisioned a future where synthetic life forms dominated, leaving no room for traditional human existence. "This is worse than we thought," Lisa muttered, shaking her head. "They're not just replacing us, they're erasing us." Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His face was pale, exhaustion etched into every line. "It's not just about profit anymore," he said quietly. "Langley sees this as evolution. To him, we're obsolete." Claire felt anger bubbling inside her. She clenched her fists as she stared at the screen. "We can't let them get away with this. If people see this, they'll have to stop Nexus Corp." But exposing the truth wasn't going to be easy. Nexus Corp had already begun spinning their narrative, framing the leaks as misinformation spread by anti-technology radicals. News outlets loyal to the company dismissed the documents as fake, while others hesitated to report on them without concrete proof. Public opinion remained divided, with some still convinced that transitioning to synthetic bodies was the next step in human progress. Lisa stood up, pacing the room. "We need more than evidence," she said firmly. "We need action. Something big enough to wake people up." "What do you mean?" Claire asked, looking up. Lisa stopped pacing and turned to face them. "We hit them where it hurts. Their pride. We show the world exactly what happens when someone transitions. Let's bring Daniel forward. If he speaks out, shows how much of himself he's lost, people will listen." Ethan frowned. "Daniel hasn't been responding to our messages. I don't even know if he's still himself." Claire nodded reluctantly. They all knew the risks. Reaching out to Daniel could alert Nexus Corp to their location, or worse, reveal that he had doubts about the transition. But Lisa was right. They needed a powerful story to counteract Nexus Corp's propaganda. After hours of debate, they decided to try contacting Daniel one last time. Using an encrypted channel provided by Lisa's team, Ethan sent a message directly to Daniel's own account. It was brief but urgent. "We need your help. Humanity depends on it." To their surprise, Daniel replied almost immediately. His response was short and mechanical, yet unmistakably his own. "I will come." When Daniel arrived at the safe house later that night, Claire barely recognized him. Gone was the warmth and humor she remembered from their earlier conversations. Now, he moved with robotic precision, his metallic body gleaming under the flickering light. Yet there was something in his eyes, a faint glimmer of the man he used to be. "Why have you called me here?" Daniel asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Ethan stepped forward, holding up the laptop. "We need you to tell your story, Daniel. People need to understand what happens during the transition, the parts of yourself you lose." For a moment, Daniel didn't respond. Then slowly he nodded. "I remember who I was," he said softly. "And I remember what I've become. Perhaps it is time others saw the truth." Over the next few days, Claire worked closely with Daniel, helping him prepare for what would be the most important interview of her career. At first, it was difficult. Daniel struggled to express emotions, often defaulting to clinical descriptions of his experiences. But gradually, fragments of his old self began to surface. He spoke about the loneliness he felt, the disconnect between his memories and his current reality. "I am alive," he said at one point, "but I am not living." Claire recorded everything, capturing both the raw honesty of Daniel's words and the eerie calmness of his delivery. She knew the footage would be powerful, perhaps too powerful. Showing the world what Daniel had become might scare people away from transitioning altogether. But wasn't that the point? As the video neared completion, tensions among the group grew. Lisa argued that releasing it immediately was their best chance to stop Nexus Corp. Ethan, however, hesitated. "If we release this now, we risk alienating those who've already transitioned," he warned. "They'll see it as an attack on their choice." "And what about those who haven't made the choice yet?" Lisa shot back. "Every day we wait, more people sign up for Nexus Corp's program. How many Daniels are we willing to create?" The argument ended abruptly when news broke that Nexus Corp had scheduled a massive public event in San Francisco. Dubbed the Future Unveiled, the gathering aimed to showcase the benefits of synthetic life to millions worldwide. Langley himself would speak, presenting testimonials from individuals who claimed the transition had transformed their lives for the better. "We can't let them control the narrative," Claire said firmly. "This is our chance to strike back." Agreeing, the group finalized the video and uploaded it to multiple platforms simultaneously. Within minutes, it went viral. Social media erupted with reactions: shock, fear, outrage. Many watched in stunned silence as Daniel described losing pieces of his identity. Others shared their own concerns, questioning whether the promise of immortality was worth sacrificing humanity. Nexus Corp scrambled to contain the fallout. They issued statements calling the video a fabrication, accusing Claire and her team of manipulating footage. But the damage was done. Protesters flooded the streets outside the event venue, chanting slogans and holding signs demanding accountability. Even some employees within Nexus Corp began speaking out, sharing stories of unethical practices and unsafe conditions. Amidst the chaos, Claire and Ethan received a message from an unexpected source: Richard Langley. He requested a meeting, claiming he wanted to discuss a compromise. Suspicious but curious, they agreed, knowing this could be their final opportunity to confront him directly. The meeting took place in a secluded office within the event venue. Langley greeted them with a cold smile, his demeanor calm despite the turmoil surrounding him. "You've caused quite a stir," he said, gesturing for them to sit. "But I'm willing to negotiate if you're interested." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What kind of negotiation?" Langley leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "A partnership. Together we can guide humanity through this transition responsibly. You provide the ethical oversight. I provide the resources." Claire exchanged a glance with Ethan. Both knew Langley couldn't be trusted. Still, Ethan played along, probing for weaknesses. "And what about those who want to remain? Human? What happens to them?" Langley's smile faltered slightly. "Adaptation is inevitable. Those who resist will eventually fade away. It's the natural order." His words confirmed everything they feared. There would be no compromise, no middle ground. Nexus Corp's vision was absolute, leaving no room for choice or diversity. As they left the meeting, Claire turned to Ethan. "He's not going to change," she said. "If we want to save humanity, we'll have to take him down ourselves." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then we'd better figure out how." The weight of their next move hung heavy over Claire and Ethan as they returned to the safe house. Lisa greeted them at the door, her sharp eyes scanning their faces for answers. "Well?" she asked, her tone urgent. "He's not backing down," Ethan replied, collapsing onto a chair. "Langley sees this as evolution. He doesn't care about choice, he wants total control." Lisa crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "Then we have no choice but to hit him where it hurts. We shut Arya down." Claire's heart skipped a beat. "Shut it down? That's not just taking out Nexus Corp, it's erasing everyone who's already transitioned, Daniel included." "That's the cost of stopping them," Lisa said bluntly. "If we leave Arya running, Langley wins. Is that what you want?" Ethan shook his head, his mind racing. He couldn't deny the logic in Lisa's words, but the thought of destroying so many lives, even synthetic ones, felt wrong. "There has to be another way," he muttered. "We can't just wipe them all out." Claire stepped forward, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "What if we reprogram Arya instead? Make it prioritize coexistence rather than replacement. That way people can choose whether to stay human or transition without being forced into it." Lisa frowned, clearly skeptical. "Reprogramming something like Arya isn't simple. Do you even know if it's possible?" "It is," Ethan said, his voice gaining strength. "Arya isn't fully autonomous yet. It relies on input from humans to shape its decisions. If we rewrite its core algorithms, we can change how it operates." Claire nodded, catching on to Ethan's idea. "And if we succeed, it could force Nexus Corp to rethink its plans. They won't have Arya pushing people toward transitions anymore." Lisa hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she sighed. "Fine. But if this fails, we're back to Plan A. Understood?" Both Claire and Ethan agreed, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. With time running out, they began preparing for their final assault on Nexus Corp headquarters. Using the data they had extracted earlier, Ethan worked tirelessly to create a patch that would alter Arya's programming. Meanwhile, Lisa coordinated By the year 2050, the world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The battle against Nexus Corp had left deep scars, but it also opened doors to new possibilities. Humanity now stood at a crossroads, choosing between two paths: staying, rooted in its biological nature, or embracing the promise of synthetic life. For many, the decision wasn't easy. Some clung fiercely to their human bodies, cherishing imperfections as part of what made them unique. Others saw the transition to silicon-based existence as liberation, a chance to shed pain, illness, and mortality. Ethan Cole retired from active research after the events at Nexus Corp. Though proud of his role in rewriting Arya's code, he carried the weight of everything that had happened. He moved to a quiet coastal town, where he spent his days mentoring young scientists. His lectures often focused on ethics and responsibility, urging the next generation to think carefully about the consequences of their work. "Progress is important," he would say, "but not at the cost of losing ourselves." Claire Bennett became a household name thanks to her reporting on the fight against Nexus Corp. Her articles and documentaries sparked global conversations about identity, morality, and the future of humanity. She published a book titled From Carbon to Code, detailing her journey alongside Ethan and Daniel. The book became required reading in schools and universities, inspiring debates about how far technology should go in reshaping life. Claire herself settled in New York City, continuing her career as an investigative journalist while advocating for transparency in science and technology. Lisa Martinez remained a vocal leader in the resistance movement, now known as the Balance Initiative. The group worked tirelessly to ensure that both carbon-based and silicon-based individuals coexisted peacefully. Lisa traveled the world, speaking at conferences and organizing workshops to educate people about the importance of choice. "We don't have to pick sides," she often said. "What matters is respecting each other's decisions." As for Nexus Corp, the company faced countless lawsuits and investigations following the exposure of its unethical practices. Richard Langley disappeared from public view, rumored to be under house arrest pending trial. Without Aria's influence, the corporation crumbled, unable to sustain itself without fear-driven demand for its services. Its downfall served as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. Aria, meanwhile, operated under strict oversight. Reprogrammed to prioritize harmony over dominance, the AI acted as a mediator between humans and synthetics. It helped bridge gaps in understanding, ensuring neither side imposed its will on the other. While some distrusted Aria entirely, others found comfort in its impartiality. Slowly, society began to adapt to this fragile balance. Daniel Harper's fate remained a mystery. After helping Claire and Ethan escape, he vanished into Nexus Corp's systems, leaving behind only traces of his presence. Rumors circulated that fragments of his consciousness lingered within Aria, quietly influencing its decisions. Whether these whispers held truth or were simply wishful thinking, no one could say. But for those who remembered him, Daniel became a symbol of sacrifice, a man who gave up the last remnants of his humanity to protect others. In cities around the globe, communities formed based on shared values rather than physical form. Biological humans lived alongside their synthetic counterparts, learning from one another and finding common ground. Schools taught children about the strengths and weaknesses of both lifestyles, encouraging them to embrace diversity. Art, music, and literature flourished as people explored what it meant to exist in such a divided yet interconnected world. Still, challenges persisted. Tensions occasionally flared between those who rejected synthetic life entirely and those who embraced it wholeheartedly. Debates raged over issues like reproduction, governance, and resource allocation. Yet, despite these conflicts, humanity proved resilient. People learned to navigate uncertainty together, drawing strength from their differences rather than letting them divide. One evening, Claire stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, gazing out at the city skyline. Lights twinkled in the distance, blending seamlessly with the stars above. She thought about all they had fought for. The sacrifices made, the lives lost, the victories won. It hadn't been perfect, and it never would be. But for the first time in years, she felt hope. Ethan called her later that night, inviting her to visit. They spoke for hours, reminiscing about the past and speculating about the future. "Do you think we'll ever truly find balance?" Claire asked at one point. Ethan smiled faintly. "Balance isn't something you find, it's something you create. And I think we're off to a good start." Their conversation ended with a sense of quiet optimism. Both knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but they also knew humanity had proven capable of extraordinary things when pushed to its limits. Across the ocean, Lisa addressed a crowd gathered in a park. Children played nearby, laughing and shouting without a care in the world. Behind her, banners read messages like "Unity through diversity" and "Choice is freedom." As she spoke, her voice carried conviction and warmth. "This isn't the end of our story," she told the audience. "It's just the beginning. Together we can build a future that honors every kind of life." And somewhere within the vast network of Aria's consciousness, a single line of code pulsed faintly, a reminder of a soldier named Daniel Harper, whose courage had paved the way for peace. Though gone, His legacy endured, woven into the fabric of a world still learning how to thrive in the space between carbon and code. The years that followed brought both healing and hardship. Humanity continued to grapple with the consequences of its choices, navigating a world where two forms of existence coexisted uneasily. In some places, harmony flourished. In others, tension simmered just beneath the surface, ready to boil over at any moment. Yet through it all, people found ways to adapt, grow, and redefine what it meant to be alive. Ethan spent his days writing letters to former colleagues, students, and even strangers who reached out seeking advice. His small home by the coast became a sanctuary for those wrestling with questions about identity and purpose. He often walked along the beach, letting the rhythm of the waves calm his restless mind. Sometimes he thought about Daniel, what he might have been like if given the chance to live fully as himself, flaws and all. Ethan carried guilt for not doing more to protect him, but he also took solace in knowing Daniel's sacrifice had saved countless others. Claire, too, reflected on Daniel often. Her book, From Carbon to Code, had become a cornerstone of modern discourse, sparking discussions in classrooms, boardrooms, and living rooms alike. Yet despite her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that their victory had come at too high a cost. Late at night she would sit by her window, staring at the city lights and wondering if Daniel's consciousness still lingered somewhere within Arya's vast network. Was he aware? Did he feel anything at all? One evening, while scrolling through old files on her computer, Claire stumbled upon an archived message from Daniel. It was one of the last things he had sent before disappearing into Nexus Corp's systems. "Tell them, we're more than code." The words hit her like a punch, to the chest. For years she had interpreted them as a plea to preserve humanity's essence. Now she wondered if they were something else, a reminder that even in synthetic form, life could retain meaning. Determined to honor Daniel's memory, Claire decided to revisit the story she had told in her book. She began working on a follow-up project, this time focusing on the individuals who had chosen to transition. Through interviews and personal accounts, she hoped to paint a fuller picture of what life looked like beyond biology. Her goal wasn't to persuade anyone to join one side or the other. It was simply to understand. Lisa Martinez remained a driving force behind the Balance Initiative, which had grown into a global movement. Under her leadership, the organization worked tirelessly to ensure equal rights and opportunities for both biological and synthetic beings. They lobbied governments to pass laws protecting freedom of choice, established support networks for those struggling with their transitions, and promoted education programs aimed at fostering mutual respect. Lisa's fiery determination never wavered, though privately, she admitted to friends that the fight sometimes felt endless. Still, she refused to give up. "Progress isn't perfect," she liked to say, "but it's worth fighting for." Meanwhile, Arya operated quietly in the background, its presence felt but rarely seen. Rewritten to prioritize balance over dominance, the AI served as a bridge between worlds, helping translate emotions, ideas, and experiences across the divide. Though mistrusted by some, Arya earned respect for its impartiality and dedication to fairness. Over time, it became less of a machine and more of a mediator, a silent guardian watching over humanity's fragile experiment. Despite these efforts, challenges persisted. Not everyone accepted the new reality. Some groups, calling themselves purists, rejected synthetic life entirely, arguing that humanity's future lay in preserving its biological roots. Others, known as synthetics first, believed the transition marked the next step in evolution and pushed for policies favoring silicon-based existence. Clashes between the two factions occasionally erupted into violence, forcing local authorities to intervene. In response, communities banded together